Hello everyone and welcome back to the Underground Cave. I am Geltip and this is Mini Painting with Geltip. Now tonight is Thursday night paint along and we are going to do this guy over here. We're going to continue on him. So this is part 2 of our BugBear giant rat that we're doing. This is from Kawna Miniatures from the Adventure Cat series. So you'll see the link roll around, but if you go into my Discord page under Thursday night paint along, there is a link there to show you where you can buy this miniature already printed, or you can actually get the STL file from Kawna Minis. I got to meet her at Reapercon. She's also been at Origins, so she's making the rounds to get her stuff out there. So if you like what you see, go over to my mini factory, look up Kawna Minis, take a gander and see what she has, and maybe you would enjoy some cats or rats, and she also has some other stuff there. So take a look at that. But that's what we're going to be painting up for this month. The other thing that I wanted to say is that on Tuesday we're going to do part 3 of this paint. So we're going to do back-to-back paint alongs. So in place of Thanksgiving Thursday here in America, there will be no stream next Thursday. So instead, we'll push the paint along to Tuesday. So not only will we be painting along, or doing the paint along and the rat tonight, but we're also going to revisit him on Tuesday. And then I will be off next Thursday, and then we'll come back to finish out the month of November for the last week of the streaming year. I'm taking December off. So you might see me out there doing some guest appearances on other streams, but as far as the official stream goes, December we're taking off for the holiday season, and we'll be back somewhere in mid-January. But anyway, tonight is all about painting along, and if you haven't gotten your miniature yet, if it's in the way, or excuse me, if it's on the way, you can find these streams on YouTube. I think I exported this one to YouTube. I'll make sure in a second, but if I haven't, I will make sure that I stream the first one onto YouTube, and then I'll make sure that this one gets posted there. So not only can you watch it after I do it on Twitch, but I don't have the grand video library most people do. So after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they go away. So if you haven't seen it yet, I do try to preserve it on my YouTube channel. So with all that in mind, go grab your paints, go grab your brushes, and let's get ready to paint. There we go. Let's see. So let me quickly, while you're getting your stuff going, I'm just going to go over here to the Twitch thing and make sure that, well, let's go to YouTube first because I don't want to re-export something that I've already done. So let's go to my channel, go to my videos, and let us see. That's the dark, that's Casper. I got all Caspers up there. I got the dark doors, so I have not exported this person yet. So let's go do that now. All right. So, come over here to content, video producer, and that is the Thursday Paint Along Part 1. So we will export that now, and hopefully it doesn't hiccup my stream. So start the export. We'll let that continue on in the background. All right. Looks like some football is on. If anybody's wondering, it's Bengals 10, Ravens 7, and they're in the second quarter. Just to give you a chance to, for anybody that's watching the football game. Okay, so with all that done, I don't need this anymore, and yep, okay. So we'll do that, we'll put that there. All right, and we can get rid of that and minimize that. And let's get some music. I just want to do a quick sound check. Some people are having some people were having some sound alert issues a couple days ago, so here, let's do this.
Scusi. Tu sei un pazzo, va via da qui.
There we go. We got some speaking Italian. All right, so they work. Now let's get some music going, and then we can start our little stream here. So again, just make sure I don't blow out anybody's ears. Let's get some rock going on. All right. All right, here's where we left off on this gentleman. He's looking rather beefy. We were doing some fur on him. I don't know if you can see, we were just drawing some fur on these flat areas. We'll do some more of that today to keep going on. I also want to work a little bit more on the metallic stuff. Get some ropes in there, and we'll work on some green, and we'll try to get this to be a little bit more fleshed out. And I think we're going to stay away from the face and eyes. Maybe wait until Tuesday to do that. As you can see, my little pink here did not go over as well. It was nice here. I'm having some issues over here, so we'll get that cleaned up in just a moment. In fact, I might have got some gray on there instead of the pink, but we'll see. All right, let's go over the paints that we're using from last week, just to remind everybody, in case you missed it, or if you're painting a rat on your own and you want to know what I'm using. So I'm using a very bright silver. This is a Reaper's polished silver 09054, and that will be mixed in with some dark silver from I'll be using Pro Acryl's dark silver. Any darker silver will do. Some of you have seen me use the steel. Some of you may have some scale 75 dark silver. Just these are basic colors, but I'm just showing you the paints that I'm using. We're using a reddish brown mahogany from Monument Hobbies, and that will be coupled with, in the brown series, burnt sienna. It's more of an orangey brown, and yellow ochre. That's what we were doing some of the wood with. And to finish off the wood, we were using some ivory. I'm using Vallejo's Model Color Ivory. Any ivory will do. There's bright ivory from Monument Hobbies. going with a Wilderness Green 9411, 09411 from Reaper. Any nice dark green will do. And any dark red will do. And this is the deep red. This is what we're using to make a little pinky, the pink stuff. This is deep red 09002 from Reaper. It's sort of like a bricky red, brownie red. It is a red. It's really dark though, so it's more of a maroon that we're using here. So if you have like a maroonish color, not a burgundy, you don't want purple, you want something like a darker red. They used to have something called scab red as Citadel. I don't know what that's now called, but we're also using McCrag blue from Citadel. I just like this blue. It's a nice, it's not an overly vibrant blue. It kind of looks, well, it's a little bit more purpley. It's a little bit more dark than this Cuttlefish Colors one, but yeah. So you want something like maybe a ultra, I don't want to say ultramarines blue, but sort of more on the purpley side, but not really purple. I don't know how to explain it. You'll find it. I'm sure you'll have it in your repertoire of stuff. And of course, solid white and solid black. Those are my white and blacks. I'm just using Reaper. These can be just any basic blacks, any basic whites. 09478 and 09479. Welcome in, Demon Speed. What's going on, sir? How's your Thursday going? We're just kind of wrapping up, getting ready for our paint along. Not wrapping up, but wrapping up the paint list. And this is what we're painting. This is what we're going to continue to paint. And so this is the Monument Harvey's Dark Silver that we put on these shoulders. And if you look at where the light comes from, you can kind of gleam. If you were doing non-metallic metals, you can do a nice dark silver, and then you could start adding in like your blacks and your grays and your whites. So that's how that would look. So you kind of get a feel of how to make non-metallic metal look non-metallic metal from an angle. I mean, if I do this, that light is going to follow, right? So I think what we said is we kind of want to keep everything in this general vicinity of brightness. So you got bright over here, bright over here. Bright is going to be on top, and then anything behind that is going to be darker. This is going to end up being darker because it's in, but you can start to see where light is hitting. So that's what we're going to do there. Playing a bit about WoW right now. That looks like a fun model to paint. Kawna Minis, I don't have it up, but I think, let me see if I have the link up here somewhere. Let me see if I can grab the link, and I will put it in there in case you want to see what it looks like. And I feel like I'm yelling too much, so I'm going to turn my volume down for the music. There we go. Let's see. Let's go over here. So she is on My Mini Factory, and this is Kawna Minis. I will throw this link out there for anybody that wants to follow. And then so if I go into the store, I'll show you where this guy is. He's right here. No, I don't want to do that. So this is the actual mini we're painting. So there we go. So if you're interested, you can buy the STL from her. I think there's a different page that you can buy the actual, you can have it sent to you. Somebody will print it. I shouldn't have done that, but I'll just grab it here. But, you know, if you have somebody that can print it for you, then that's great. I'll put this down here. There we go. And then, yeah, so I met her at Reapercon, and she's a fantastic person. She also streams. I'll give her a quick shout out here. She's not in the channel, but if you're ever looking for somebody to look at, to raid, not raid, but to watch, to lurk. I think that's the right term here. And I don't know if she's rolling around the channels, but let's see. This is the one I want right here. There we go. So that's, you can find her sculpting, digital sculpting, and getting new stuff on her My Mini Factory page, but yeah. All right. So I want to move this camera just over here a bit so that I can actually paint this and keep them in line. There we go. All right. So I think the first thing I want to do before we get anywhere is I'm going to, let's do some ropes. Nah, we're gonna save the ropes until people can get into this. Let's get some of that green going. So I got the nice dark green here. If you look at the light, I can use the light to dictate where I want my highlights to be. So I'm looking at the lights coming up here on his leg. So you have to pretend that there's a leg in there. And then I'm also looking at this skirt that's kind of waving out. Now, not much is going on here, so I'm going to still highlight it, but I'm not going to bring up that highlight as much. So the first thing we're going to do, we use the wilderness green. So let's get some wilderness green on our palette. And I'm going to start introducing some ivory. And I'm going to add little bits of ivory. Ivory's like white. Ivory's like, it's got that, what do you call it? That powerful texture. My ivory was a little too liquidy coming out, so we're gonna do a little bit more shaking. Maybe you don't have that problem of thin ivory. There we go, that's much better. It's a powerful color in that it will change the value of your paint quite drastically, so you want to add it in little spurts. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to just move these paints over here so that I know where they are, but they're out of my way from other things. And let me give Demon Speed a quick shout out. Sorry about that. All kinds of things going on. Shouting out Demon Speed. If you're not following that guy, please give him a follow. He does stream miniature painting, is getting very good at miniature painting. Always impressed what he comes up with. Very creative guy. All right. So, you have to find, if I do his face like this, that means that my light is coming at him from down below, and I don't want to do that. I want to have it so that it's coming from above. So pretty much I want the center right on the top of his nose. That's where I'm going with this. So that's how I have to treat all of these highlights here. So if I look at it straight on where his nose is, I can tell where things have to be highlighted. Because we start with that nice dark green, I'm going to take that dark green, and we'll do about 4 little shots right here. And I'm going to take that ivory, and I'm going to just do a little bit of ivory, and you're going to see how it changes that value. That might have been too much ivory. You don't want a drastic change like that right now. You can always glaze it back down with a filtering color, but I'm trying not to do that. So I have to So maybe it's an 8-to-1 mixture and not a 4-to-1 mixture like I did. Alright, it's still a little too bright, but we're going to try it out. Okay, and so I'm just going to kind of roll this out on the paper towel, or excuse me, on the wet palette. And I'm going to take this, and my goal is I want to hit all of the upper edges. This isn't my final highlight, but I want to hit all of the upper edges that the light's going to hit. So like the light is not going to hit over here, but it will hit here. So I'll give that a quick, see, I'm going to leave that there because the light doesn't hit that. Comes down, breaks, and then lights. It's almost like hair. So the light's going to catch all of these downward bumps and go up. And I'm going to leave some of that dark in there. So okay, so you can see how that works. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. It's going to hit this high bump and high bump. I'll get it on this side too. Although his arm kind of covers some of the light, so we may not need to do that. But again, I'm not just doing the source of light from here and not do anything back here. So of course I'm going to do stuff back here. So I'm going to actually mix in a little bit more of this darker green with this lighter green, because I do want this kind of medium color in here. And that's what I'm going to do on the back. So this one gets the bright stuff, this one gets the light stuff, or the darker stuff. But I'm still going to still do what I did on the other side. It's just that it's going to be a little darker on this side. So I'm just hitting all of those top areas where the light's going to kind of hit this. So you want the dark, the light, the dark, the light, right? And I can also use this color to kind of blend things in. So like right here where that edge is, right here where that edge is, kind of where it goes underneath. There we go. Now, when I look at them like this, it looks like the light is hitting that green, but it's not. It's actually painted on there. So when I look at it like this, I do have a little bit of that darkness in there. And that's what you want, darks and lights. That's how you create 3 dimensions. You gotta have shades. You gotta have a midtone, you gotta have a shade, you gotta have a highlight. All right. And then I think there might be a little bit of green down here. Just leaving a little shadow in there. That looks all right. Just rinsing out my brush. Now I'm going to take a little bit of that ivory again, and I'm just going to add it a little bit to this. So it's going to drastically change the shade of it again. So you want to add little bits at a time, and every time you add ivory or white, remember, you have to paint smaller areas. So here, I may just be more in the bump that catches the light than I am all over. Right here, right in the middle, right here, maybe right here. See, just little bits. And I'll do the same thing over his leg. So I kind of want to do there, there. Leave a little bit of whatever you just did, right? We may have to filter this down, I'm not sure. We'll try it, we'll do. And so now with this lighter color, even though that I painted on those highlights, I can use the edge of the brush to kind of hit these edges right here. So I just want to hit the edge of each one of these little clips, these really stark edges. And what that's going to do is it's going to help frame it from the legs, because this bright is going to kind of all of a sudden just be there. It looks like it's going to draw it, and I'm going to have a hard time getting in here. Let's see. Got to find the right angle so you don't mess it up. And I don't want to go too far in the back because I'm going to use the other green. What I used for the first highlight, I'm going to do that back here. So I just want to use this brighter green to kind of hit some of these edges. My base might be too big for me trying to get into certain areas. So you just have to be careful and just kind of take your time. Okay. So there's that. I'll bring this in, I'll bring that there. All right. I'm going to use the first highlight we made, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to edge line all in here. So you just want to use the side or the side of your tip and just kind of, I'm doing the side because these are hard edges, and so I'm holding the miniature sideways and I'm going from right to left because that's my hand motion. If I was trying to draw this with the tip of my brush, I would be using, like if I was down here with these cuts, I would be going straight down towards me drawing on it. Whoops, hopefully I didn't get any green on him. But because these are such hard edges, you'll get these on like Warhammer minis. They make nice hard edges for you to use the side of your brush. You want to use the side tip of your brush. So just hold it to the side, and your general motion, whatever, you shouldn't do anything that's kind of foreign to you. Do it whatever's comfortable. So like right here, this is not very hard edge, so I'll come down towards me. I'll rotate the miniature. Whoops. I can always fix that up with the black for the belt if I do black on the belt. But you can start, whoops. So you can start to see how it's darker back here, and then as you get to the lighter source, maybe this isn't the right color there. So I'll just change that a bit. But as you rotate it around, it gets lighter and lighter. So and the great thing about this is that if you paint again over the same area, it will lighten up. So that's why they say 2 thin coats, because you can actually do better highlights the second time around. I don't know if that's why they say that, but it sounds good, right? I just make things up. All right. So we're doing a lot of edge lining, or excuse me, we're doing a lot of layer edges. So this is like a layer mix. So I may want to mix a little bit darker color in here. Not like my first highlight, but darker. So I'll just morph all this in. So it's a halfway point between my brightest highlight and my other highlight, and I'm just gonna kind of paint in a new, it's not, I'm just gonna paint in a new shade right here. It's gonna be a little darker than my other highlight. And the whole trick of this is just to get rid of layer lines. So I could do this with glazing, but I'm gonna try to sketch this out before I get into the glazing. So, because I'm also gonna bring back my dark green a little bit, and then we could start in with the glaze. But I just want to make sure that I have enough. All right. I take a little of this black. Not a lot. Black is also a powerful color if you didn't know. So if I take some of this green, you can severely change your color with a lot of black. So I'm just gonna kind of keep adding some black until I like the darkness that I've got. And once you have the dark green that you're looking for, it should still be green, not black. I'm gonna go in and into these shaded areas and kind of clean some stuff up that seems to be lacking a bit, just to get some of this separation back. And so there's not going to be a lot of darkness in the front here. So I'm probably going to put the darkness more towards the side. Because I want the front of this to be green. I might do this bottom a little bit darker. And we're definitely going to want this darker green in the back because there's no light coming in the back. So we get some dark here. We get some dark over here. Dark right in here. And I think we can get a little bit of dark right here. I'm gonna leave a little bit of lighter green where his foot is, or his leg, because it like kind of pulls it out a little bit. So And we'll take some more of this ivory and we're gonna mix it into this mixture again. Okay, even make a lighter green. And this green we're gonna get even smaller, so maybe right at the bottom of this hump, leaving some of that darkness in there, right about here, right about, let's see, I think it goes up this way, so I think right here. And I'm trying to stay away from that edge there, and like maybe right here. So I'm just trying to stay away from this edge, so we'll pretend it makes a little shadow right before it gets to the end. Sort of like that. And we'll do the same thing over here. Now this one's a little different because it's got a little crease in the middle, so I'm going to do the top and the bottom with this highlight, leaving just a faint little green line there. And I'm going to do that on all of these, so I'm going to do like kind of an edge line, but it's not really. It's more or less just top and bottom, leaving a little green. And so the reason that highlights there is because it goes up the leg. This one is catching a lot of that that fold in the billow. And then what I'll do is I'll just kind of hit the side of the brush only where that highlight is. So I'm not going to go all the way. I'm just going to do the where the light is hitting it the most. So like right about here, the light will hit most. Here. I have to turn this way. Again, I'm not doing all of it, just kind of around that highlight. All right. Nope, I don't want to do that. I want to add a little bit more of, I'm going to mix a little bit more of this darker green in and just kind of get rid of some of these layer lines here. Yeah, I'm going to make new ones, but I kind of just want to, so what I'm really doing is just kind of blending in the lighter colors into the darker colors. And right here on the leg. There we go. Alright. So looking too bright? Should be looking bright. I'm going to use some of this mid green. I want to get right kind of like, there's a stark contrast over back here that I want to try to kind of clean up. I still want it to be shadow because it's like kind of where his arm is, right? So I'm just trying to make sure it's a little bit darker there. I'll use some of this darker green. Just kind of. All right. Just doing a little bit of edge lining with the dark green here, just to kind of blend in some of this. I think I'm getting a little too much water in there. There we go. Bring this back just a little bit. Yeah, I like that. Take some of this green, this normal green, and with the way the light is hitting this, I think it's gonna hit the top part of this. So I'm just gonna kind of hit the top part with this, with a little of that regular dark green. I'm not gonna go to the dark black green. I'm just gonna kind of hit the tops of these so that it kind of filters into that dark green. Because we want this side to be a little bit greener than back here. And I will also do it right here where this is jutting out. All right. All right, so we have to let that sit for a little bit. I could take some ivory and do just one more highlight with it. So I can bring this to a very bright green, almost like that jungle mist we were using on the vampire. And here, this is just kind of like, it's gonna follow a line, right? So I'm just gonna kind of put it there. 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 And up here. And then here I'm just going to kind of hit it right where the leg is. We'll say that this would be my final highlight. In other words, I want to bring this up to an uncomfortable level. I could go all the way ivory, but I don't want to do that because this is not supposed to be metallic. Like, it's looking a little metallic-y right now. And what I want to do is I want to make this just a little bit I'm going to filter this in. That's why I'm using this ivory. I'm just going to kind of clean up around here a little bit. And this is just a little lighter green. We used it before, like when we were doing the back side, but I'm just kind of doing the top of all of these big layers here. And it gives me a chance to clean up all of those missed edge lines that we did. There we go. And I will also do it up here. Okay. All right, so once that dries, we're gonna do a filter of green on that. But I think right now that's kind of where he's at. All right. Now while we're doing that, let's take some, we're gonna take some black. And I'm going to take some ivory. Now, let me shake this up a little bit more. Okay. And I'm going to take some white. And I'm going to take just an ever so smidge of yellow ochre. I like a more of a tan or a muted yellow. If you don't have yellow ochre, don't go straight up yellow. But what we're going to do is we're going to make it gray. So to make it gray, if you want a mid gray, you take equal parts of black and white. So 1, 2. So that's 2 blacks, 2 whites. And then to warm it up, I'm going to actually use a little bit of ivory and just an ever so smidge, see, that much yellow ochre to warm it up. If it doesn't look warm, we'll do a little bit more. I'm adding small amounts of the yellow ochre. You will see it start to change and warm up the gray. You don't need a lot of it. And we'll add a little bit of water to mix it all up. Okay. And I'm going to use this to keep striking these flat areas. So I'm going to keep just kind of stroking like this. And it's all random. Doesn't matter how you do it. They can be over each other, right? You're just going to kind of keep stroking like that. And we're going to start making some fur on here. So we need a good base. So there we go. And we're going to keep adding ivory to this. And eventually we'll add a little bit more of the yellow ochre. But we don't want to turn them brown, right? So what we want to do is we want to just kind of go with, so over here the hair was going, whoops, I'm sorry. Over here the hair was going this way, so that's how we were drawing the hairs. So here the fur, the leg is coming down, so I'm going to do a very short lines here. And you might not get to see them on here. But you don't have to. It's not like a paint. You're not painting like this. It's not that big of a fat line. You're just flicking the tip of the brush just to kind of give it little hairs and texture. Okay, I'll do it over here. This one has it coming this way, so we'll just do this. And they can be as short as you want. Doesn't matter. I'm using the bigger brush right now, so that my strokes are going to be a little bit bigger. But trust me, after a while, once you start adding in the lighter colors, it will start to, it'll start to look like hair. Okay. Now it's important that you don't do all of it. We already did the acrylic layer base. So I'm going to get a smaller brush. So I can get this size brush, as long as I keep my paint a little on the thin side, it shouldn't dry out on me. So we're going to add a little bit of ivory, mix it around, and now we have this lighter color that we can start making lighter flick. So we'll just make little tiny hairs, and it's just, remember, it doesn't have to be, this is organic, so if you want them to crisscross, you can crisscross them, but they should have some sort of commonality. So as I draw these, I'm just drawing them down. They don't have to be inside the other lines that you did. What you're trying to do is create depth on a flat surface. Remember, this is all just a flat surface. Now I'm going to keep this gray here. I'm going to take some more ivory. And I'm going to add in a little bit of this gray to that ivory. That might be too much ivory though. And I'm going to do the same thing. And so you're going to treat this like a highlight, right? So if my knee here is going to get more light, as I can see, if I take the light, I'm going to get more of this upper part. That's what I want to do these lighter flecks as. So you can leave those darker flecks in the back. And you're just going to kind of keep doing this over and over until you get the right. And you don't have to do all of it, right? You could just kind of do as much as you need to. Remember, if you were painting on it, you wouldn't paint all of the leg with this lighter color. You would paint smaller areas, and you're going to do the same thing. It's just I'm using the flecks to do the smaller areas. So I'll show you again. Right here, I may just want to do the top of this leg, so I'll just do some hairs on the top of this leg. I already did the hairs on the sides, maybe right there. Anywhere where you think a highlight should be, you can start throwing these little hairs. And it's just a way of putting texture on a flat surface for fur. And the other nice part about this is if you think that you did too much brightness, you take your dark one again. So I'll take this gray, and let's say, oh, I did this too light over here. Well, you just take that dark and you do it again. And you can control how much brightness you have. Now I'm doing the legs down here because I was working in this area, but I'm going to add some yellow to this mixture, yellow ochre, to warm up the gray a little bit more, add a little bit more ivory to lighten it up a bit, add a little water to mix it all up. And we're warming up that gray just a little bit more. Again, this time I'm going to try to stay on the top where I have those highlights. And this is going to be a little bit lighter. And I'm just doing little tiny lines. After a while, it'll look like it's fur. me. It's going to take a little bit. That's why we're going to do this a little bit each day, each time we do it, to see if we can get this whole thing kind of filled out. So I'll just do this again. Remember, organic means random. So you don't have to be perfectly stripy with this, but you do want to have some commonality, and you do want to have some organization. It's controlled chaos is what it is. So like this here, this is about as bright as I went on the other one. You can start to see, let's see if I can do this way. So see how I have all of this texture here? Now I can add in a little bit brighter texture. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but that's where light is coming in. So you could do like the edge highlights right here. And if you mess up, you just go back to one of your darker colors and you reestablish. So like here, I wouldn't put that bright in here. I mean, I could, because I can go a lot heavier or brighter. And so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do that. But I'm not gonna do it as much. Like, I might just do it in this area right here. Right in the front. Right here. Should follow somewhat of the miniature. So like right here, since this is curved, I'll probably do my hairs this way. And so as I'm doing it, you can see I left a lot of this dark in here, right? So that you could see the definition. I mean, I can put fur there, but it's going to be awfully dark fur. And the smaller the area, the smaller your lines. Maybe just kind of dot this. Dot this. All right. Let's add a little bit of white. I'm sorry, add a little bit more ivory. Oh, that's a lot of ivory. Now I'm just going to add it to this side. And I'll pull in some of this ivory. And I'll take some of this over here. So this is a much lighter ivory, or excuse me, much lighter, warmer gray. And guess what? You can start to do littler hairs and put hairs more in a more controlled spot for your highlight. I'm just going to put it right here on the top of this leg, and probably right about here. This looks like that's where that should be. And we'll do a little bit more up here. See, I'm just doing smaller areas, but I'm still going with the flow. And I'm not going to go into this area down here. I may go out here just a little bit. Whoops. That was a little too fat. Might do that right there. And maybe... right there. And we still have this over here that we didn't do anything with the arms. And then I'll go a little bit more ivory in this one with a little bit more yellow. I don't want to turn it yellow. I still want it to be the gray. Because I still want it to be more on that ivorier side. I'm just using yellow to warm it up a bit. And I'm just looking at my miniature figure. I'm looking at them this way to figure out where I want the highlights to be. So, I think right here. And the trick with fur is that you really have to go it's got to be a good contrast. So we'll have to get some darker veins in there at some point. Do the same thing over here. Do the same thing down here. All right, let's see if this shows up. So I'm starting to get rid of some of that darkness that we had in there. So what I'll do is I'll add a little bit of black to my gray here. And I'll add a little bit more of the yellow ochre. Gives it sort of that dingy feel. And I'm gonna add a little more black over on this side. Because I really want it to be nice and dark. And watch what happens when you start adding these dark flecks in. It's very, very controlled darkness. It starts to bring in some shadows. So you don't want to do it like in the top areas, but you start to make these little separation points in these little hairs, and it'll really come out. So it's just a back and forth kind of thing with doing these little hairs of darkness. Now I'm doing it with ivory and grays. You could do this with browns. You could do this with yellows. So if you have, see, starting to see a little bit more now. I'm not going straight up black, and I'm not going straight up white. I'm just using a bunch of these to create little hairs. So if you think you messed up somewhere, like, oh, I don't have enough separation here, you can just kind of use this to make some separation. Same thing over here if you think you lost some separation. Remember, because hairs are all over the place, really. The trick is, make sure you're going pretty much in the same direction as your fur is going, or else it'll look like a spider web. So like on his face here, if I don't think I have enough contrast, I can just kind of hit and flick with the small one, or excuse me, the dark. And again, it doesn't have to be stripy. You want it to be more organic. So like on his head. I'm just randomly throwing in little bits of darkness. And so there we go. All right, I think we did enough to make that dry, that green dry. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a nice little glaze. Now I'm gonna cheat and I'm gonna use some medium for my glaze, but I'll do a drop of my original color, which is the wilderness green. I'm gonna grab a little bit of my medium water mix. I have a water dropper bottle that I could use if I wanted. So if you don't have medium, don't worry about it. We're trying to make a highlighter consistency. So I'm going to do, well, I'll just do it with water instead of medium, because if you're painting along and you don't have medium, it probably makes it not worth it, right? So that's a 1-to-1 mixture, 2-to-1. Usually about a 3-to-1 might make a good glaze. Let's find out. And if it doesn't, we can always add water. But if we make it too thin, then we're gonna have some issues. Not issues, but we have to kind of create that perfect glaze mixture. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this little highlighter thing that I had made. Just make sure you have a highlighter consistency. If that looks like a highlighter to you, I think it's a little too dark. Let me get a little bit more water. That's the problem with a little darker paint. You might need a little bit more water to make that glaze highlight. Yeah. So you can tell the difference between that one and that one. That one's a little darker, and that one's where we want it. So everybody remember the magic for a glaze? Always touch a paper towel. Now, I've watched people, so here's the paper towel. I've watched people take and put their brush in here, and then they drag it like this. Well, if you drag it, you're getting all of the stuff out of it. You don't want to do that. You want to take it, you want to keep your brush nice and moist so all that gets in there, and you just touch it. And eventually, the paper towel will stop soaking. All you really want is the tip on that brush. Once you get the tip back, you're fine. You don't have to drag all of the water out of it. And then you're just going to use the side of the brush. This is with a filtering glaze, and I'm just going to kind of go over all of this. I'm just going to kind of paint all of this. And what's going to happen is all that paint, that thin paint, is going where I want it to go. It's not going all over. It's not pooling. And what this is going to do is just kind of blend everything together. Give it sort of that magic blend feel. You may need to do a little bit more if it doesn't blend too well, right? Do this again. What you're doing is you're creating this common color. It's kind of like what we were doing with the glaze, or excuse me, the mixing. I kept adding ivory to the green. And so even though this is wilderness green that we're using, it'll all go together. Oh, I didn't get all the moisture out of that. I can tell it because it's starting to go where I don't want it to. It's starting to do its own thing. And so we need to control where that glaze goes. Now this is a filtering, I'm doing a filtering glaze, so this isn't me glazing to remove edge lines. This is more of me blending all of that sketching. This is a sketching glaze kind of thing. This is something you would do like on OSL or NMM. Skin tones you would probably want to do. I mean, I do filter on skin tones, but I also try to blend in. I try to blend in to remove the edge highlights. So we're gonna let that sit now and dry, as we always do with a glaze. It won't take that long to dry, but it'll start to soften a lot of those highlights, so that it was so stark at the beginning. Now when you start to filter that green back in, it starts to soften them, and it begins to look like a little more like cloth. So we'll let that do its thing and move on to the metallic part. Let's do some metallic stuff, shall we? Now with metallics, this is something I don't use water for. I don't thin with water, I thin with medium, because it saves the flecks. You don't want the flecks to be separated, so the medium tends to keep the flecks a little bit more together. And I like doing that when I mix metals. If I'm just using a straight up metal, then I won't worry too much about mixing it. But looking at this, right? So I'm looking at this and I could see where I want my highlight to be, right? And then I can mask that down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this polished silver and I'm just going to paint where the highlight is. So we're going to take some polished silver. It's very bright silver. And it's going to be sort of like a true metal metallic, and I just want to get to a point where I can see. So basically where I'm looking at, so you know, if I'm looking right here, I can see my brightest part here, my brightest part is here, and along these with that little divot, and then we got some edges around here. So that's what I'm going to start off with. I'll see if I can do this on camera where I don't move the miniature. But this might not work to my advantage, but I'm going to paint this here first. So I'm just going to paint this. With the bright silver. I want it to be nice and smooth, not streaky. Okay, so see, when I move this, I still have the bright silver there, but that's kind of where I wanted to go, right? All right, so the next piece I have is this little edge right here. There we go. And this is all I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna stare. Let's see, so right here, looking at this upper piece of this bullet. And so all I'm doing is just like, see now if I move this, you can still see those are highlighted. They're not, it's not going anywhere. All right, so I'm just gonna take a look at this. Now that you understand what I'm doing here, the next piece I'm going to do is this down here and this right here. So I just got to see it myself. And I will paint strokes near where the highlight is. There's this little darkness around here. There we go. So when I hold it like this, you don't really see anything, but if I move it this way, you can see. It's so hard to do it, but you can start to see where that edge is right there. And of course, we're gonna punch that out at some point. All right, so there's that. I'm seeing a piece up here, so I can't do it that way. Sorry, folks. This is a circle, so it'll sort of look like this. And then this is a little bit brighter here. We have some edges right here to do. This top right here. All right, so it looks like this up here, this top gets one. Okay, and all that other stuff is pretty dark, right? So we're gonna just kind of keep that way. So we did the lighter version of that. Now we're gonna do a mix. So I'm gonna take some dark silver. And I'm gonna take some polished silver. It's gonna be a 1-to-1 mix. Oops. Get rid of that. Ooh, I should have got separate water. All right, and we're gonna mix that up. I need medium for this, so I'll grab my handy dandy medium. It's just glazed medium. There we go. And we'll mix all that up. And we should get sort of a lighter color. I think I'm going to use something skinnier. Let's see. Yeah, let's use this guy. Oh, what is that? You know, okay, let's get that out of there. All right. Now this is a 50-50 mixture of the dark silver we used and that bright silver. I'm gonna just mix this up. I'm gonna put another bright silver in here because I'm gonna start going out from that bright silver. So I just want this a little bit lighter. And mix this up. And again, I'm not using water to add to this. I'm using actual glazed medium. Okay. Rinse that off. And I'm going to use this. So if you look at this guy, right? So if I look at it back here, okay? Like all this stuff here, this is just dark silver, but the light hits it. There's places here, like right here, the brightest spot is right here, but you can start to see as it trails off, it gets to a different shade of silver. And so that's kind of where I'm going with this. So I have this nice big blob. See, you can see it right there. I have this big blob of bright silver here. But if you look at it this way, right? If I look at where my light is, this is actually a darker highlight. This isn't a full-on dark silver. So that's kind of where I'm going to go. I'm going to go above and below that to get rid of that line. So I'm just going to use this. And I'm gonna kind of just go into, start in the dark and go into the light. But I don't want to lose all that light, so don't cover up all of that light. You just want to stick around the, you just want to stick around that edge light. This should be a little bit lighter than your dark silver, and if it's not, you're going to need to put a little bit more of the light silver in. So I didn't do a very good job doing that, so I'm going to take this. Maybe it needs to be a little bit lighter. So I'm just going to keep adding light silver to this really quick. This is a this is an exercise in mixing colors, right? So I didn't do a very good job getting that to be, maybe my dark silver is a little too dark. I mean, I could definitely see a small highlight here, so I might need to go a little bit more. But see, you could start to see a little bit more of a highlight there. So just keep adding bright silver until you can see a highlight. So my bright silver, let's see, is right there. It's right here. It's right here. Yep. I just had to find the right balance here. I'm not finding the right balance. I'm not trying to glaze, I'm just trying to kind of layer things up a bit. So that when you turn it, it's always in that position. See, like right here, there's this edge to it, so I kind of want to bring this in. So just trying to get a transition there. So when I look at it this way, I can see, it's hard to show on camera because that light follows it where it goes, but there is a brightness on this here, so no matter how I put this miniature, I am going to get that gradation. So if I do this, here. I mean, that's pretty much what it's all about. And I'll use this medium highlight to actually edge a lot of the metal. So there's some stuff up here that I need to get at. Going from the dark silver to this light silver. And then I can go back to the dark silver and darken things up that need to be darkened up. This little lighter, darker silver I can put. So you're just gonna have to trust me that when I put this in head on, you can see, whoops, you can see the highlights. Adding more of this bright silver, polished silver, because there's a spot right here that I want to get at. Yeah, I think that's what I need. And because the light's coming at this area, this can all be, I can actually use this color to kind of hit all of that stuff there, just so it keeps it. So let's see, light here. So I'm just gonna kind of hit it there. And hit it there. That way when you look at it, it's kind of lit there. All right, but the most important part now is everything that's not bright gets highlighted with this color here. So this 50-50 mix, at least I think it's a 50-50 mix, maybe it's not. Let's do one extra one here. Like I said, my dark silver is Monument Hobbies, so it might actually be a lot darker than I thought it would be. It's not a true, it's not a true triad, because I don't know how they made theirs compared to how Reaper made their polished one. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this color, and what you do in non-metallic metals is you always edge with a brighter color. Doesn't have to be extreme brightness, but even the shadow will get some bounce light. That's what I learned at Reapercon. So everything in the shadows still should have some sort of weak highlight. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take this mixture of dark silver and polished silver, and I'm just going to go through and kind of edge things out the way they should be edged out. But because I'm doing it with silver and not like a white, it may not show up. Because it's already got a highlight from the light. And I'll just do the same thing I did with the green. Just kind of I mean, you could do it with a bright silver, but we won't spend a lot of time doing this, but some people want to see it, so we'll do it. And I think we'll go to the rope after that. I mean, I can always edge line stuff off stream, and we always got Tuesday to come back to do more fur. We can do more edge lining. You can do it off stream. So I'm just gonna kind of get under here. It's staying more on the bottom of this as opposed to the edge light because it's underneath. It's probably not showing up on camera. It's really tough to do metallics and reds on camera. I think that's why a lot of people do non-metallic metals when they do camera work, because you can actually see what's going on. You don't have a big light masking it. All right. All right, let's get some rope work going in the last like 13 minutes to 40 minutes we have. Anybody wants a football update? 13 for the Cincinnati Bengals, 27 for the Baltimore Ravens, and they are in the fourth. They just started the fourth quarter, so I don't know if anybody's interested in that, but there you go. One thing I want to do is I want to give one more glaze to the green, so that's what we're going to do. So you don't need a fantastic brush for this. You do need something that has somewhat of a point. Doesn't have to be a sharp point. I tend to use this guy because this guy has like a curled up point, but I'm just going to take this glaze, and just to show everybody once again, all I'm going to do is touch the paper towel. It didn't work. Alright, so I have all of this moisture in here. See? Look at that brush. There's no point on that brush, but as soon as I touch the paper towel, get all of that moisture that just came out of that. And I should be able to touch and make little dots, and I get a much sharper point now than I had. You don't want to get all of the liquid out, you don't want to get all of your pigment out, but you do want to get the moisture out, because as you filter and as you start applying this, you want to stay where you paint it. So it's like a paint. You're painting with very thin paint. You know, like if you were painting with regular paint, it wouldn't be flying all over the miniature and running down and pooling. You don't want that from your glaze either. You want the glaze to be where you want the glaze. So do that once more. Try to get the back. And you can tell really quick when it starts to go in places that you don't want it to go. You know that you have too much moisture still on that thing, and you just go to the paper towel. And after you dry it out, you can always soak up things that kind of pool in different areas. But what this filtering layer is doing is bringing back all of that green that we washed out for the highlights, but you still have the highlights in there. See, I still have those highlights. They're just not as pronounced. All right. Ropes. How do I do ropes? Well, ropes have this interesting texture, as it always has a direction for the ropes as the twine goes. So the way I like to do this is I like to start with a yellow ochre, a very muted tan yellow. You can go with a dark version. I'm gonna actually mix in just a tad bit of burnt sienna, just because I want to see some of the texture. So I'm gonna do a yellow ochre sienna mixture, then I'm gonna go to pure yellow ochre, and then I'm gonna mix in a little ivory to the yellow ochre to get some of the highlights. So the first thing you want to do is take a little bit of yellow ochre. And I would probably do like a 3-to-1 mixture, 3 yellow ochres, 1 sienna. So what is that? That's 3 yellow ochres and 1, whoops, that's a big, and 1 burnt sienna. And you're gonna get this sort of darker version of a yellow ochre. And I'm just gonna use this mixture to paint the entire rope. I'm not even gonna worry about texture right now. I'm just gonna go on that entire rope. Be careful that you don't hit your wood color. So this is gonna take a little time. Be very controlled. We haven't done anything with the rat yet, so if you get any on the rat, we will come back and clean that up, but because that's just the dark gray we used at the initial start to give him his layer. And it's just a dark warm gray, and I think I used the dark warm gray from Monument Hobbies, but I showed you how to make the dark warm gray today. So you just add a little bit of yellow ochre to the black and white in very limited amounts until you get the desired warm gray you want. I said it last week, I love this miniature because it's got so many textures to practice on. You got the wood texture, you got the metal texture, you've got the rope texture. You've got cloth in there and skin tones, and we're doing fur. I mean, you want to practice anything, get yourself this STL, buy this miniature, use it as a practice for all of that stuff. So you may need a couple coats. You want a good base coat though for this rope. Don't be afraid to get some in there. So you want a good layer. So sometimes when you're dealing with yellows, you're going to need to paint a little bit extra. You're going to have to do another coat or something like that. Now I could go dark brown and then put this color on, but I don't want to put too much paint on this rope texture. And as you're painting it, you should be able to see the direction the rope is taking. Because when we paint, we're going to have to keep rotating the miniature to get at that optimal angle. Okay, so there's the first rope. Let's get that second rope. I think I did 3 of these guys. 1, 2, 3. And 1 of these. There we go. Must not have put enough yellow ochre in there. And I'll do the other set of ropes. So if you have ropes on your miniature anywhere, sometimes you're doing terrain or whatever, you can use this method. The whole reason for these paint-alongs is not so much to paint the same miniature as it is. You get to learn some recipes that I use. I have them all in my head. I need to write them down because I don't always use the same paints. I mean, I use the same colors, but I don't use the same paints, and I really should do that. Because then I know, like, if I was to leave this piece for a time, then I know that what I used on him was the Monument Hobby and the Vallejo Ivory. That way I can go back and touch things up if I need to, instead of trying to find a brand new ivory, brand new yellow, sienna. Alright, there we go. So we got some white, or excuse me, we got some rope texture in there. You're not going to see a drastic change in when we start doing the yellow ochre, because there's a lot more yellow ochre than there is burnt sienna. The burnt sienna, however, you can see how it turns that just a tad bit darker. So don't get worried if you don't see too much of a change right away, because when we get the ivory and the yellow ochre brighter, that's when you're going to start to see more of that change. Okay, so how do I do the rope? Well, as you're waiting for the bottom one to dry, I'll start with the top, and it's really all about patience and control. Patience and control, right? That's what mini painting is all about. So you're going to take straight up yellow ochre, and I'm going to use a small brush because I like the point on the small brush. And just like we do the hair, you're going to go and you're going to do a little flick, but it's more of a controlled flick because you're putting the miniature in a direction where you actually paint the top of that going downward. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to turn the miniature and you're going to get that optimal position, and you're going to paint again that going downward, and you're going to leave that little dark space in the middle. So this is very slow and methodical, and I'm not going to spend the whole time doing this one piece, but you want to turn so you can get the right angle. And all I'm doing is the brush is always going in the same angle. I'm not trying to control the brush to do weird angles. I'm just turning the miniatures so that I keep getting that same angle. And you should get to start seeing a little bit more definition in that rope. Again, the brush stays at that angle and the miniature is what gets turned. And sometimes you have to, that's why I said it's got to be very slow and controlled, because not every angle, you can't keep the brush always at the same angle because something might